They walked in like any ordinary couple, worn-out sneakers, simple clothes, and tired smiles that said they'd seen their share of hard days. No flashy jewelry, no designer brands. Just two people, hand in hand, looking like they barely had enough to window shop, let alone step inside the town's most expensive jewelry store. At first, no one really noticed them, but when they started admiring a sparkling diamond necklace, the staff's mood shifted fast. Eyes rolled. Whispers began, and before they even had the chance to say a word, they were approached by a sharply dressed manager with a forced smile and a cold voice. "Sorry, but we serve serious buyers here," he said, loud enough for a few nearby customers to turn and stare. Embarrassed but dignified, the couple quietly apologized and turned to leave. Snickers followed them out the door, and the manager smirked proudly, thinking he had protected the store's reputation. What he didn't know was that he had just made a massive mistake, one that would leave everyone in that store stunned. Because just seconds later, something happened that none of them could have predicted. The couple's true identity, and the incredible wealth they had kept hidden behind their humble appearance, was about to be revealed in a way that no one in that jewelry store would ever forget. The same people who had laughed at them would soon be scrambling to apologize, but by then, it might already be too late. Stay with us, because what happens next will completely change the way you look at people, and prove that sometimes the most unassuming souls carry the biggest surprises. Outside the store, the couple paused for a moment. They didn't look angry or upset, just quietly disappointed, as if this wasn't the first time they had been judged by appearances. The woman, Sarah, squeezed her husband Daniel's hand and gave him a small, knowing smile. They exchanged a few soft words, too low for anyone to hear, then calmly walked toward a sleek black car parked just a few steps away. It wasn't just any car either. It was a luxury model, the kind most people only see in magazines, polished so clean it seemed to glow under the sun. From inside the store, the manager and a few customers caught sight of the car. A few eyebrows raised. Whispers started again, but this time they were filled with confusion rather than mockery. Who exactly were these people? And why would they be driving a car like that if they couldn't afford anything in the store? The questions hung thick in the air. Daniel opened the passenger door for Sarah with quiet care, and that's when it happened. Another man, dressed sharply in a dark suit, approached them from across the street. He called out to them by name, loudly and respectfully, and bowed slightly as he spoke. The man's face was familiar. He was the owner of several luxury businesses in town, including high-end real estate and exclusive jewelry brands. His presence alone caused a few people nearby to stop in their tracks. Inside the store, the atmosphere shifted from smug confidence to uneasy doubt. The staff leaned closer to the windows, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Something wasn't adding up, and deep down, they knew they might have just made a mistake that could cost them more than they ever imagined. The store manager's heart started to race as he watched the scene unfold. He tried to shake off the sinking feeling growing in his chest, but it was no use. He quickly turned to one of the sales associates and muttered something about getting back to work, though his own hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. The few customers still inside had also noticed the tension. Some pretended to browse, but most were too distracted, sneaking glances out the window at the simple couple now surrounded by signs of unexpected importance. Meanwhile, Sarah and Daniel spoke quietly with the man in the suit. From a distance, it was clear they shared a warm, friendly bond. After a few minutes, the suited man gestured toward the jewelry store, frowning slightly as Sarah and Daniel politely shook their heads. It was subtle, but the rejection was there, and inside the store, the staff's uneasiness deepened. The real story behind Sarah and Daniel was something few would have ever guessed. Years ago, after growing up in hardship, they had built a small family business from nothing. Through hard work, smart investments, and years of sacrifice, they had become quiet millionaires, choosing to live simply and stay connected to their roots. They believed in kindness, not showing off wealth, and they had made it a rule never to judge anyone based on how they looked. But today, judgment had found them. And it wasn't just the manager who felt the sting of regret. One of the younger sales clerks, Emily, had watched the whole scene unfold and now felt a knot of guilt twisting in her stomach. She had noticed how respectfully Sarah had admired the jewelry, how Daniel had looked at her with love, not greed. Emily wondered if maybe she had chosen the wrong role models in that store. Outside, the conversation wasn't over. In fact, things were just getting started, and the real shock inside the jewelry store was still yet to come. The store buzzed with a nervous energy now. Whispers floated between the customers as they pretended to browse, but their eyes kept drifting to the front door. Even the employees who had once looked so confident now shifted uncomfortably behind the counters, exchanging worried glances. They had seen the man in the suit hand Sarah and Daniel something, a small, elegant card, and then gesture toward the jewelry store once more. This time, the couple seemed to hesitate. Daniel looked toward the glass doors, his face calm but unreadable. Sarah gently touched his arm, as if giving him silent encouragement. Then, without a word, they turned back toward the store. Their steps were slow, steady, and every person inside felt the weight of their approach like a rising tide they couldn't escape. The automatic doors swung open with a soft chime, but the sound felt deafening in the silence that had settled over the room. The manager quickly straightened his jacket and put on his best professional smile, but the panic in his eyes was impossible to miss. Emily, the young clerk, instinctively took a step back, guilt gnawing at her heart. Sarah and Daniel walked directly to the main counter, the very same one where they had been dismissed just moments earlier. The manager hurried over, his words tumbling out, eager and fake. "Welcome back. How can we assist you today?" he said, his voice cracking slightly. Daniel glanced at Sarah, then calmly placed the elegant card on the counter. The gold lettering gleamed under the bright lights. Private client, executive access. It was a card given only to the wealthiest and most important clients in the region, the kind who could buy the entire store if they wanted. Gasps echoed quietly around the room as the realization started to sink in. The air inside the store grew heavier, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. Sarah tapped the card lightly against the counter, her eyes locked onto the manager's, steady and unblinking. Daniel leaned in, his voice low but clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We were looking to make a significant purchase today," he said, his tone calm but carrying a weight that made the manager's smile falter. "But now we're reconsidering." The manager swallowed hard, nodding quickly, trying to salvage the situation. Of course. Please, allow me to personally assist you. Anything you'd like, it's yours," he stammered, motioning toward the most expensive pieces in the store. But Sarah didn't move. She simply slid the card closer to the edge of the counter and said, "Maybe we should take our business elsewhere." Her words dropped like a stone into a silent pond, sending ripples of panic through the room. Just then, the glass doors swung open again with another soft chime. Everyone turned to look and froze. It was the owner of the entire jewelry chain, a man whose name was spoken with respect and fear in the luxury world. He didn't walk in with a crowd or any grand entrance. He moved quietly but with a presence that demanded attention, and he was headed straight for Sarah and Daniel. The staff scrambled, standing straighter, fixing their uniforms, panic written across their faces. The owner didn't even glance at them. Instead, he went directly to Sarah and Daniel, shook their hands warmly, and said, "I'm so sorry for the way you were treated. You are some of our most valued clients. Please, let's discuss how we can make this right." The entire store froze again, but this time it wasn't just embarrassment. There was something else. Because when Sarah and Daniel smiled politely and accepted his invitation to the private VIP lounge, the owner turned back toward the staff, and what he said next would change everything. The owner's face, calm just a moment ago, hardened as he turned to the staff. His voice stayed even, but it cut through the air like a knife. "It's clear that our values have been forgotten here," he said, his eyes scanning each employee, lingering on the manager who had humiliated Sarah and Daniel earlier. We do not judge our customers based on appearances. Ever. The manager opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His face turned pale as the owner continued, "Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties." Gasps rippled through the store. The other staff members looked down at the floor, too afraid to move. Emily, standing quietly by the counter, felt her heart pound. She had played a part in this too, even if she hadn't been the one to speak the cruel words. Sarah and Daniel exchanged a look but said nothing. Their grace only made the scene more powerful. It wasn't about revenge for them. It was about principle, about standing up quietly against shallow judgment. The owner invited them once again to the private VIP lounge, assuring them that the company would personally customize anything they wished, free of charge. Just as Sarah and Daniel began to walk toward the back, Daniel paused. He turned around, looked at Emily, and gave a small nod. "You," he said kindly, "you noticed. You have a good heart. Never let this place change that." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't fired. Instead, in a twist no one expected, Daniel handed her a card too, an invitation to interview for a new position at one of his own businesses, a place built on respect, not appearances. As the couple disappeared into the private room with the owner, the rest of the store was left stunned, the lesson clear and unforgettable. True wealth isn't worn, it's carried within. As Sarah and Daniel sat comfortably in the VIP lounge, the tension from earlier slowly faded away. They weren't interested in flashing their wealth or proving a point with grand purchases. Instead, they asked to have a few simple but meaningful pieces designed, gifts for their family members who had supported them through their hardest days. True to their nature, they chose kindness and humility over pride, even after the way they had been treated. In the main store, Emily held the card Daniel had given her like it was a lifeline. She felt a sense of hope growing inside her. A fresh start, a chance to work for people who believed in something more than appearances. As the day wound down, she made a quiet promise to herself. No matter where she worked, she would treat every person who walked through the door with respect and kindness. The former manager, meanwhile, left the store with his head hung low, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. He had been so focused on impressing the right kind of customers that he had missed the most important truth. Real success isn't about looking wealthy, it's about living with heart. Word of what happened that day spread fast. Customers and employees alike shared the story, and soon the jewelry store became known not just for its beautiful pieces, but for the powerful lesson it had learned the hard way. Respect, humility, and kindness became the new gold standard. Sarah and Daniel never sought recognition. They simply lived by the belief that every person deserved dignity, no matter what they wore or where they came from. And in the end, it was that quiet strength, their true wealth, that left the greatest impression on everyone who crossed their path.